Dear colleagues, we are now in the first live session, the plenary of the conference, and I'm very happy to introduce you these participants of this session. I think you know all the name of the session: Introduction to Practicing the Person-Centered Care. And together with Professor Jako, we will try to help you in this session, and we'll be chairing this plenary. Let me introduce Glyn Elwyn, who will talk in this session as our honorable guest speaker. Professor Glyn Elwyn is a clinician, a researcher, and an innovator, a family doctor, and has been working on shared decision-making for the last 30 years. He is a tenured professor at the Dartmouth Institute for Health Policy and Clinical Practice in USA, and at the Scientific Institute for Quality of Healthcare, Radboud University Nijmegen Medical Center, the Netherlands. He has been visiting professor positions at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland and at University College London, UK. Practically, Dr. Elwyn was a GP in Wales, UK, working, researching, teaching in the Netherlands, Switzerland, and in the USA. There is a difference in the USA and in Europe, but he knows all the practices when thinking about his career journey. If you read his CV, you will be very much affected, I'm sure. Glyn says he is here to talk about how to become experts in shared decision-making. Patient-centeredness during the last 40, 50 years, to be honest, not really happened. There is a thesis by preparing tools, questionnaires, to help to send information beforehand for preparing the patients. With a group of colleagues, Glyn published the three-talk model of shared decision-making. Glyn mentions that tools are essential, but they are not going to help us unless we have the following qualities: curiosity, generosity, and reflectivity, which is the ability to reflect on your behavior. Among them, he says probably generosity is the first keystone of the team. The question comes when you intend to use those available good tools in practice. How to choose the right tools is another question will be answered by Glyn. Glyn is going to challenge us if we like to think about whether we too can become really experts that shape our making using some of these tools he talks about. After Glyn's talk, to which we are looking forward to listening, we will have Dr. Anna Stavdal's comments on this challenging conference to initiate a fruitful discussion. Anna is a Norwegian GP, an experienced speaker, and she describes herself as a passionate advocate for primary care. She has been in leading position in many organizations for the last 25 years, at the Norwegian, Nordic, European, and now at the global level. Anna is the president-elect of WONCA World since 2018 and will take the office from Donald as WONCA World president 5 months later, incoming November during the World Conference. Now I would like to give a few words to Anna to send the greetings of Donald to all of us. Anna, please.
Thank you so much, Mehmet, for your nice introduction. I'll be brief, but I'm bringing greetings to our Dutch hosts and to all the colleagues attending this conference from WONCA World and its president, Dr. Donald Lee. So dear Wendy Bornemann, Dorian Swatch and Jako Burgers and all of your team, thank you so much for the work you have carried out to prepare this conference and all the efforts you have made in quite difficult times. We are clearly grateful to all of you for your support and your work. That's basically what I would like to say at this point in time, and I'll come back after Glyn's talk. I'm looking forward to listening to you, Glyn. Over to you, Jako.
Thank you very much, Anna. I'm thrilled that we have Glyn on board and you on board for this first plenary of the WONCA Europe 2021. My name is Jako Burgers. I'm general practitioner in the Netherlands and chair of the scientific committee. Again, I'm thrilled about the program. I'm so happy that all of you are here. We have now more than 500 people live. This is a live session, so Glyn's talk will also be live. You have the possibility to ask questions using the chat function of Zoom. I think that almost all of you are used to use Zoom in this online period with the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think it does not need more explanation. So you can use the Zoom, the chat function, sorry, but you cannot raise hands. We have too many people on board, so you cannot raise hands. It's my task, together with Mehmet, to ask as many questions as possible, but I'm sure I cannot give all the questions to Glyn because, well, we need to make a selection. I will also take care that we have a lively discussion, sometimes ask Anna to reflect, sometimes ask Mehmet to reflect. So that's how we will organize it. Now I stop and I give the floor to Glyn. Up to you.
Well, thank you so much for those introductions. And it's really a delight to be here and with you all. Let me go to share my screen in the full. Can I check that you are seeing my presentation? Very good. So thank you. My feeling is that you are probably doing shared decision-making with your patients. But I would really like you to become expert at this, because in my view, as one paper has it, it is the pinnacle of patient-centered care. I do have some competing interests that I want to mention to you. I do this because I want to try, I'm in a hurry, I want to scale these ideas up internationally. And to do that, you need partnerships with people who know how to build things at scale. And so the EBSCO is making option grids, and I'll be telling you about a new company called Abridge, but I'll keep that for now. But just to let you know that I do have those interests. I'm going to tell you about tools. About 8 tools in all, I think. But tools are no good on their own. They need skilled people to use them, really. And this is the same for healthcare professionals too. You need tools, but you need to have real skills. And those skills, I think, depend on personal qualities. And I use this slide to say, one of the biggest qualities that you can have is curiosity. What is in front of me? Who is this person? How do they live? Who are they living with? What do they worry about? What brings them joy? That's the kind of curiosity that helps you use tools that I'm going to show you well. And secondly, who of you will share your Kit Kat, your chocolate, with another person? This is about generosity. And I'll tell you about generosity because the way of working with shared decision-making is about sharing you, your skill, your expertise with others in a genuine way. And I use this slide to talk about reflexivity. Who do you think you are? Are you expert at shared decision-making? Or maybe you've got something to learn. Are you the lion or are you the kitten? It's important as a practitioner to reflect. There's a really good book called The Reflective Practitioner by Sean. This is key to good practice. And of course, we need to be efficient. And to be efficient these days, you have to know how to use Zoom, you have to know how to use your computer and so on. So many tools that have come so important to our modern life, especially during a pandemic. And I'm going to rest on the shoulders of this guy. He is Kurt Lewin, the father in a way of social psychology.
Glyn, sorry that I interrupt you, but there's a window open so that you cannot see your slides completely. It's on the right. Yes. Yeah.
This one.
Yeah, you should close it. And also on the upper side of your screen, so that we can see the whole slide. Well, this is fine. Yes.
This one is better. Is better.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
good.
better. Yeah, that's better.
Oh, thank you, Jako. I did not realize that that was shown.
No, please continue. Thank you very much.
So this is Kurt Lewin, and he said, nothing is as practical as a good theory. So the tools I'm going to show you involve some models, actually, models of how to think about the way you're practicing. And he also said, the best way to understand something is to try and change it. And I've been working on changing communication practice in primary care and other practices for, as you heard, for a while. Now, I love tools. This is one of the set of tools that I would have to fix my tractor, for example. But tools, and as you all know, are no good on their own. So here's the first tool I'm going to show you. It's the COM-B model by Susan Michie, another social psychologist, actually. And she is talking, how do you change behavior? And she has these three big buckets. It's a very complicated actual model, but this is the simple version. There's plenty of opportunity for us to change our behavior, right? We have meetings with our patients every day. But also, capability is where the tools come in. You need to be capable of changing your behavior and using the tools well. So capability is where we can do most of our work. And those qualities that I mentioned of curiosity, or generosity, and reflexivity, they fit in that motivation bubble. And capability and opportunity move towards motivation, and motivation helps us change our behavior. This is a very important model that I've used throughout my research. And the tools that I'm going to talk about fit in there, in the capability side. Now, when I talk, I use this cartoon a lot. And I often ask people, what is being said in that speech bubble? And I get a lot of answers to this. And typically, I say this is a medical consultation, a clinical encounter between two people. And I say, what is being said in that bubble? And the answers I get are like this. Well, I have some test results for you. Or I'm sorry to say I have some very bad news for you from the test we did last week. In other words, people think this is the doctor or clinician speaking. But then I show them this slide and I say, this is not the clinician. This is the person who's talking to the clinician talking. The clinician is the woman at the bottom of the table. And if I only had two slides, I would use these two, because for me, it's the real core of what it is to create an environment for shared decision-making. And I ask you, what had to happen for this person to be able to say those 4 words? This woman had to give him some information, explain it, help him understand it. More than that, she had to create the space for this person to speak. She had to go quiet. She paused, actually. And more than that even, she created an environment where this man felt safe to say he prefers this alternative. That is not as easy as it sounds, believe me. I'm going to now show you a definition of shared decision-making, and I'm beginning to use the word co-production. It's an approach where health professionals and patients make decisions together. You all know that. But don't forget the evidence. I'm a proponent of evidence-based medicine. We need science into this conversation as well. But here's the most important statement of all. People don't feel comfortable making these tough decisions, so they need a lot of support. Otherwise, they turn back to you and say, what would you do? So getting them comfortable to express their preferences is a real skill, which is why a group of us, a large group of us, prepared this model, talk model. This is another model of shared decision making. I'm going to talk about generosity. I'm going back to the full view in a second. My computer is very sensitive here. Generosity, because the first is team talk. Let's work as a team, says the clinician, because I want to support you to make this decision, because I know it's going to be difficult. Curiosity, because I want also to know your goals. If I don't know where you're trying to go, how can I help you get there? I want this person to be able to say my goals are. And here's another model, the 3-level goal model. Goals, I think, fit into 3 big buckets. And there's another paper by myself and Neil Chiverman from the Netherlands. Things that bother me now, symptoms. Things I want to be able to do to play tennis with my bad knee, function. Things I want to achieve in my life, the fundamental goals, they are deep. And I don't often want to express those. So trying to weave together this 3-level goal model and the 3-talk model brings you to goal-based shared decision-making. And how do you make this efficient? Well, I'm going to suggest that asking people before they come to see you, asking them these 3 questions using these corporate prompts. Are you concerned about anything now or in the future? What goals do you consider important? And here you see the 3 levels again: feeling better, symptoms, getting things done, function, life in general, fundamental. You would be amazed at the answers you would get if you were to ask people these 2 simple questions before they come into your room. And it doesn't take only a few minutes to answer them. And here's another company that's made a tool that gives you in 20 seconds the idea of who Annie is. She's 80. She moved to New Hampshire 5 years ago. She's got knee arthritis and a couple of other problems. Her grandchildren and walking the mountains make her happy. But here's her biggest problem: taking care of her husband who's got dementia. Imagine having 20 seconds to read this about your patient before they sit down in your room. Maybe you already know them, but I bet you've got new patients. What would it be like if you had this information about every patient who walks in? And then comparing the possible options. You cannot do shared decision-making without giving people options. And here's where efficiency comes in, because how can you remember all that information that you've given to that patient? Here is the idea of where patient decision aids or conversation tools come in. Here's one that I've been making, option grid, and other people have copied this format. And in the Netherlands, I think there's Consult Card, and there are different versions of this kind of thing. Here's something about if you're seriously ill with heart failure or maybe advanced cancer, would you have a crash team come and resuscitate you? And here's some of the data. If you have a crash team when you're seriously ill, only 18 out of 100 people leave the hospital. And of those people who leave the hospital, the majority are not well. They need care, and they have brain damage. So this information is not easy to get, but you need to be able to share it with your people. And using these tools takes skill. Here's Annemijn Arts from the Amsterdam area now using this tool. I need to go back to my full version. I'm so sorry. Even if I touch this, my computer, it goes, out of sync. Here's curiosity again. The curiosity you ask that person who's had that information, tell me what matters most to you for this decision. This is critical, and it's the thing that's least done actually when you look at recordings. Here's two papers, classic systematic reviews, showing that yes, if you use these tools well, they change the conversation. There's 105 randomized trials in the Dawn Stacy paper, and Peter Scalia showed the same exactly for shorter tools like option grids, that they really do change the conversation, but only if used skillfully in skilled hands. So I'm going to ask you now about this issue. Reflect on your own practice. Are you doing shared decision-making using these kind of tools? Are you making the maximum use of the time available to you? What would your patients answer to these three questions? Read them out for yourself. Do you help people understand their health issues? Do you listen to the things that matter most to them about their health issues? Do you include what matters most to them? We score this measure using the top score of the 3 9s. And actually, 65 out of 100 patients give most practitioners 3 9s, the top score. But there's a lot of variation in terms of knowing how well you do shared decision-making. So this tool is available and free, license-free, for you to check how well you do shared decision-making. And then this measure, it's corroborate. How well do you do goal setting or goal attainment? Do you check whether people have managed to find their goals or agree to their goals? And then the efficient bit. How well are you at working against this, against the clock, as you have to every day? It's difficult to do this maybe in one encounter. So I'm going to suggest ways of preparing people for their visit, pulling in information at the bottom here so that you know a little bit about your patients, a dashboard about their concerns, goals, agendas, but where you can prepare them with tools like patient decision aid that you give to them ahead of their visit, or as in primary care, you say, for the next visit, I want you to study this particular tool so that you know more about the things that matter most to you. So this push and pull of patient preparation for their visits. And the last thing I'm going to share, this tool here. Patients have begun to record their visits to you. And I'm working with this company that is preparing transcripts of this visit using artificial intelligence. And I'm going to share this video with you now.
Conversations with your doctor are full of meaningful moments, pieces of insight and advice that can have a real impact on your care. Sometimes, however, these moments can fall through the cracks. But what if they didn't? Instead of those generic printouts you get after each appointment, what if you could hold on to those moments that really mattered? The explanation of your symptoms that put you at ease, the things to look out for, and what you should do about them. A bridge records the details of every conversation you have with your doctors, so you can revisit your visit whenever you like. Just give your doctor a heads up and hit record. It's as easy as that. When you're done, a bridge transcribes the medical parts of your conversation, using AI-powered speech recognition to highlight key moments, like when you discussed medications, treatments, or follow-ups. You can then review these moments later, whether it was your last annual exam, a specialist 9 months ago, an appointment you attended with your kids, or another loved one. A bridge will even define those clunky medical terms so you're crystal clear on what your doctor was telling you. If you need to follow up for any reason, a bridge makes it easy to remember. And for those times when you need the support of family and friends, you can share all those moments with just a few taps. Because when it comes to your health, you deserve all the support you can get, both during your visit and after. Stay on top of your health with a bridge. Download a bridge. Conversations with your doctor are full of meaningful moments, pieces of insight and advice that can have a real...
So I'm not sure if you've witnessed that, where people are recording their clinical encounters. Sometimes it happens without you knowing, but definitely it is occurring. And rather than worry about it, I would say see it as an asset, because people are using it to remember important things you said to them. So I'm back to the COM-B model, and I'm finishing here. I've shown you some tools, measures, models, and some other things that will help you increase your capability in the time available to you to change your behavior towards shared decision-making. However, without these qualities of curiosity, generosity, and reflexivity, I think we will struggle with even the best tools in our hands. So back to you. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share those ideas with you.
Thank you very much, Glyn. Applause for you. And I would like to give the floor to Anna to reflect on your talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Glyn, for your very clear and well-delivered presentation. You help us understand how you develop your thinking around person-centered care and shared decision-making. I've been interested in how to practice and teach person-centered medicine all through my career, and new tools are most welcome. Let me start with a comment on the basic concepts you present. They are fully recognizable as requirements of person-centered care: curiosity, generosity, reflexivity, and efficiency. I'll make a stop at efficiency as the basic concept. I think there's an assumption we often make to justify this as a basic concept, is that doctors, we are always in a hurry. We are always short of time. I indeed recognize the feeling of being in a hurry, but I'm not sure that that's the way it needs to be. Why should being short of time being an almost inherent characteristic of medical care provision? Where does it come from? In case it is a truth, what's the explanation? Is it a consequence of commercialized care, a driver for provider-induced demand, making people coming back because of unfinished business? What's the impact of this truth on the consultation process? The business, to me, works as a climate factor in the consultation, and we all know what it feels like when we have a problem we want to solve, and those we rely on to get it solved are in a hurry. As teachers, I think this is an extremely important issue to address. That said, maybe your tools can help us get rid of that climate factor. I hope we can come back to that in the discussion. Then over to the tools and the structure. You map out the patient's symptoms, the function, and the fundamental question, what do you want to achieve? A good basis for a diagnostic and therapeutic process. I believe you when you say that it has taken years to develop the questions, not least to ensure their scientific validity. I would be interested in discussing the advantages, but also the limitations of standardized questions in a clinical setting. Standardization can be scientifically important, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the questions are meaningful in the individual clinical setting. Some patients will be very reluctant to answer standardized questions, not to mention to have their answers saved in the electronic patient record. What I would like to discuss is where the standardized questions could blind us, because they serve as signposts, so to say, in the dialogue, and might sidetrack the dialogue away from what the patient really wanted to address. Good reflexivity skills can help here, and maybe that is exactly why you highlight reflexivity as a requirement in person-centered care, to make sure that follow-up questions can be tailored to the patient and her context. In light of this, over to my next reflection on the issue of posing the questions in advance of the consultation. To my experience, the reason for encounter the patient gives when he or she makes the appointment doesn't necessarily comply to what appears to be the real reason when we meet in the consultation room. The patient wants to check out in real time, so to say, whether he or she wants to volunteer the crucial information about problems or concerns. Of course, it could also be the other way around. The response to the starting questions could be easier to provide in writing than doing it face-to-face. This represents a potential dilemma for further reflection and discussion. And here comes confidentiality and secrecy issues. Where are my answers stored? In electronic times, dependent on legislation, it is hard to have information removed once included in the electronic patient record. In my experience, crucial knowledge is often personal and shared with the doctor as such. I save it in my mental patient record and don't write it down, much of it. Bits and pieces of that knowledge provided in confidentiality may constitute the decisive elements when we come to decisions and choices. When I suggest to the patient what are the options here and how to proceed. It is often about an implicit mutual understanding, which is in the consultation nonverbal. To me, this is the beauty of continuity, which we have in family medicine, if we are lucky to stay for a while in the same practice. And that's a concept you haven't touched that much on, the continuity part. I think it's very important as a power engine, so to say, to make good decisions and share decision making. Now, proceeding to the decision making itself. I like the idea of co-production. Patient and doctor as partners in care is a requirement for shared decision making. Once the different options are identified, the doctor provides useful evidence. Should it be provided in advance? I think that is one of your ideas. Again, for efficiency, maybe. At this point, I run into the potential difficult aspects of standardization again. I'm referring to your idea of posting the questions before the encounter. It can be a delicate matter, especially when it comes to screening and risk management. We know that risk intervention has been a rapidly developing growth industry for big pharma over the last decades. Fear of disease and death has fueled the sale of one blockbuster after the other, without a corresponding return on investment in terms of health. Evidence linking risk factors with specific products is a golden idea, and at least it's good for money, not always good for health. So evidence is a magic word. And I think it must always be contextualized. So I'm a little bit hesitant to providing evidence in advance. I think that we physicians tend to mix up different contexts when we assess whether evidence is useful in a specific setting. If evidence is true according to scientific criteria, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's relevant in education or health promotion. And first and foremost, it doesn't necessarily make it useful in the clinical setting. So when I ask myself the same question, in the clinical setting, is this evidence I hold useful here? I find myself back with the value of the personal relationship, the silent mutual knowledge, which cannot be customized to the person at hand in an algorithm, and general information is almost always built on algorithmic knowledge. And so are the advice given in the end. It is the personal relationship between the patient and the doctor over time which provides us with the most powerful tool in diagnosing and treating, in prevention and alleviation of pain and suffering. Continuity. Glyn's tools can help us maximize the effect of continuity for sure, if we use them with caution and in respect for individuality. I could have gone on for a while. The presentation was rich and contained so many elements calling for reflection, like the idea of giving the patient the recording of the consultation. Guess what my views would be, but I'm sure participants in the audience have reflections to share, and we can get back to this also in the discussion. But thank you again, Glyn, and over to the moderators.
Thank you so much, Anna, for your reflections. Before going to the questions of the participants, I would like to ask Glyn, do you want to react on Anna, or yeah?
Yeah, really, they're very thoughtful reflections, Anna, which is actually what I mean by skillful use of these tools, right? These tools in the wrong hands could be blunt and damaging, absolutely. And so I would not advocate the use of these tools without a human approach. And of course, it would be wonderful where continuity and an evolving relationship is underpinning the use of these tools. That's not always the case, it seems, now with fragmented care. But I love your reactions and critique in a way. I think you make friendly amendments.
Thank you, Glyn. If we talk about continuity, we can tag on this with the question of Mark Wittenbach. How would you advise we achieve increased continuity of relational care in practice, as this has been shown to enhance person-centered care and the generosity, willingness to invest in the relationship?
Right. I mean, I'm going to open up this answer to Mehmet and to Anna, actually. But, you know, when I was in practice in Cardiff in Wales, I remember if a person moved out of my geography area, I would have to ask them to leave the practice because it had to be within range of a house visit. But I think the idea now of geography and that you can't stay in my practice is a little bit outdated. And so for true continuity, if a person is willing, if you like, to remain in contact with the practitioner with these kind of tools that we're using in this conference, continuity can actually be sustained using virtual communication. And of course, you cannot examine, but you can communicate, and you cannot take a test, but you could organize a test. So I think the days of primary care using technology are going to blossom. That's my view. But I'd love to hear Mehmet and Anna react to this.
Yeah, Anna, could you unmute? Could you unmute yourself? Anna, do you want to say something? Yeah,
I'm at it. Well, I have doubts and partly enthusiastic to the idea, but also doubts. What we have experienced over the last year, 1.5 years soon, I think we have made experiences, valuable experiences, also teaching us that virtual tools is not useful for everyone, every situation, every context. It can make it easier to make contact, but it can also work the other way around. There are issues I would never raise with the patient unless I have the patient in the room. Because my working method and what I know works is also the proximity, I mean, the physical proximity of the persons involved. So what I fear is, on geographical distance, it works. And I also have patients who now not live in my community, and they live far away, and for a while we could keep contact when they are abroad, for example. But what I fear is that the digital health service provision will be a way of giving health services to, or not that high quality services to people who cannot afford or have the ability to buy or get my time.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of that effect.
Yeah. Fortunately, the theme is very important also for this conference. So we have many sessions that will also raise this issue, and we can discuss later on this point. I would like to continue with the questions from the audience, and there's a question of Mary McCarthy, who is arguing the patient autonomy. The question is, fake news is current, especially around vaccines and medication. How do you reconcile patient autonomy and recognition of their beliefs with being the expert clinician?
Right. I think, Jako, what I understand is that when people are making decisions, that doesn't seem to be in the interest of public health, correct? So refusing maybe a vaccine or vaccine hesitancy, lack of confidence in the vaccine. Is that the question?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. There are areas, I think, where shared decision-making as a model doesn't work that well, actually. For example, somebody who is addicted to drugs, maybe opiates, and demands opiates from you, it's not that easy to share genuinely in a decision. Let's use opiates together, and I can prescribe them and you can use them. In other words, there's a professional obligation on the practitioner to follow some professional evidence-based guidelines, whether it's the use of antibiotics or prescribing strong painkillers. So there are areas where the professional duty, if you like, to follow good clinical practice is not reconcilable with the demand on the side of the patient. Now, in the area of vaccine and vaccine hesitancy, it's really difficult, I think, to have a situation where a large percentage, at least, of the population has a belief system like the vaccine will change my DNA, or there is a chip in the vaccine, or I'm immune already because it's just like the flu, it's not serious illness. That's a very difficult area for this concept to live in. I genuinely believe that the evidence so far about vaccine hesitancy is showing that respecting those beliefs and then sharing what you believe to be the scientific data is the way to go. You do not win every conversation in terms of persuading people that this is in their long-term benefit, but at least you are involving them in a dialogue. And sometimes that dialogue doesn't lead to a successful vaccination, but at least you have mutual respect for each other's views. So it's a very difficult area, actually, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Glyn. So stay respectful, but you can not always do what the patient demands. Also like referrals for additional investigation, imaging.
Exactly.
Well, that's the issue, and well, that's how to deal with that. It asks a lot of communication and communication skills. And another question which is linked to this, how do you deal with patients with poor literacy and poor health literacy? Mehmet, you also have experience with that. Could you? Yeah.
Yes, I would just ask the same question for myself, actually. Then the question came from the audience, especially such colleagues which we have been working together in the Netherlands. Also, Rob Dijkstra is asking, for example, also What is the advice with regard to health illiteracy patients on shared decision-making? Are there special tools, he is asking. Just before that, I will not answer to that because I think this is not easy for me to answer, practicing in Turkey, not in the Netherlands. So we have really big differences, you know, when you are thinking about the settings, although we are applying the same rules, the cultural variations makes everything different also. But on the other hand, I will just come to the point which you were trying to emphasize, the importance of and careful approach for the AI and such kind of tools also on your suggestions. I think if it is a horse running towards you, we have or you have only one choice. You cannot go right or left, or you cannot stand up like this, but you have to jump on its back and to hold the ropes in order to direct into the correct direction. So that is how we are trying to do in this country and this kind of regions in the Southern Europe. Okay, so it's not avoidable. AI is not avoidable also, but such people like you and many other colleagues who are trying to describe the condition and handle the ropes of this horse will really help the primary health care workers and professionals to use it in a proper way on behalf of the public health of Europe and the world, of course. So that will be my simple, general, and political answer. So, Glyn, I think the question is for you, much better.
Yeah. So it is possible. In fact, there is a good systematic review by Marianne Durand and my colleagues who now is in France, showing that these tools, if designed well, are helping people with low health literacy more than they help people who are well educated, actually. And when I say designed well, I mean that they use visuals to explain risk, and they use pictures to explain what are the options. So they maybe are very simple, but they are still very effective. And the other thing I think we are underusing is when you explain things in a generous, reliable way, you say, and I would like you to record this and take it home to your family because maybe somebody in your community understands what I'm saying, even if I don't have a translator, so that they have time to listen again to the advice you're giving. So use technology to be your aid. It would be my advice.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Glyn. Another question which is linked to this. Do you feel that tools may lead to greater disparity in health outcomes within populations? So the health of the well getting better to a greater degree, but the people who do not understand will get less better care. So you need to be very rational to make decisions. And how do you deal with that?
Right. Health disparity is multifactorial, right? There are many, many issues, including all the social determinants of housing and food and education and access and everything. We don't want health technology or the new technology to be another added factor here. So I would advocate that the tools that and the models that I'm suggesting need to be designed with the people with low literacy in mind. And that's where our work is going, is to use them as the starting point for the design of these tools, rather than start with people who've got university degrees.
Yeah.
May I come in there, Jako? Because I agree with you, basically, on what you just said. But we have a situation in this country these days with the vaccination passports, because now borders are opening up. We have 100,000 people out of 5 million. I mean, and it's not 5 million grown up, so it's a larger proportion. 100,000 people who are not digitalized. How do they get their vaccination passes, for example? And is it a requirement to be a citizen, a responsible citizen, that you link up with all these devices? I'm not sure. That is one warning. The other warning is that I don't think we as clinicians, at least that's not where I want to go, to make myself dependent on the digital tools in communication with patients. Also those who have what we call low degree of health literacy. I think it's extremely important that we can have the dialogue with a pen and paper or without. I draw a lot, pencil and on paper, to try to tailor my information to the patient I have present. What we know so far is the trend is that digitalization have two effects: increasing and decreasing inequalities, dependent on what fields we are in. So this is a very, very difficult area, and I'm very skeptic to the enthusiasts seeing no hesitations to say this is the way we're going to communicate in the future. If that's the case, I'm very happy. I will retire within the next 10 years, because that would I would not like to be a doctor that way.
You're asking very fundamental questions, Anna. Although I am an advocate, if you like, of these new tools, I also do worry about how many companies are there that control these tools. It's 4 or 5, actually, big ones: Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. So we are in the hands of a very small, powerful, more powerful than individual countries, group of companies. So I understand your concern very much. And in a way, these tools need democratization, right? They need to become easier and cheaper, and not to store our data in ways that are disadvantaging all of us, actually. That's a real, genuine concern.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can continue to the next question.
Just one contribution, Jako. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. No problem, Mehmet.
Yeah, it is very, very funny that, my wife is finishing the second university in computer science at this age, and I was just checking her book, notes, when the examination starts. And it was written there that the native speakers in digital health are those born after 1985. That means I can't speak native in digital health, and I can't really go farther, but I can I can use it in my work, but I cannot talk in the same language with those younger than 1985, according to that computer science book. So this is an interesting thing that we should also think about it sometimes.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Mehmet. The next question is about education of patients. And we can use many tools, and Anna explained that we need to be very critical on that. But there is a very simple tool which is used in the Netherlands. That's the three good questions, and it's also used in other countries. I think it was designed in Canada or in Australia. And the questions are: what are my options? What are the advantages and disadvantages of these options? And what does that mean in my situation? So the question of Carina de Boer from the Netherlands is: do you think we should change these questions according to your model of concerns and goals?
No, I think they're excellent questions. I think they were developed first in Australia, actually, and been very well used and well studied. So they're very powerful questions. The reason, if you like, that I'm suggesting goals as a added model is that knowing the answers to what are my options, what are the evidence for and against, and so on, doesn't get you to understand the person that you have in front of you. And that's what Anna was talking about. This contextualization is a very important concept, because They will not tell you everything in these questions before the visit, especially if something is under the belt, right? It's below the midline. Maybe there is an issue there that they want to tell you confidentially and so on, or maybe psychological issues. So my feeling is that these tools, and my talk was clearly founded on these ideas, they are the basic hammer and nail. But after that, you need skill and human touch and really deep interest in the person in front of you to make a real use of these tools.
Can I just supplement to what Glyn's saying? I think we have many sets of key questions which can be useful in the consultation with the patient. We have an excellent, our first female professor of general practice in Norway, Kirsti Molterud. Her thesis was on key questions like what would you like me really to help with you today, for example? What do you think yourself is the cause of your problems? But I think whatever set of questions we as physicians find ourselves comfortable with, we have to tailor it to our own style. Because if we are not computers, and we should not customize to computer language or the standardization, far out. Mm-hmm. It must always be a personal matter also how you phrase your questions, right. And of course also to the patients.
And I agree with that, Anna, but too often I think the fundamental curiosity and generosity and interest is not there. And so people are floundering on the surface of issues without actually understanding who they've got in front of them. So in other words, they don't know how to go deep into how to tailor. So although I'm an advocate of the tools, I'm also an advocate of this contextualization and personalization as well.
I used to say when I teach or when I speak about this in English, which I do right now, because it doesn't go in Norwegian the same way. How are you and who are you? Those are the two main questions. And then you can elaborate on those two questions. But how are you and who are you? Yeah. Crucial information for the physician.
Okay. We have a few minutes left, and again, many questions, and thanks for your presentation, Glyn, from also the participants. I have a question from Edmund Jack from your country. Thank you. How do we develop the characteristics and attitudes required in trainings and doctors? So how do you train? How can they be learned? And if not, how do we select for them? That's the question about teaching.
Right. Well, I'm in front of many teachers here, I think, but my most painful experience was watching a video of myself trying to speak to a patient. And it happened to me more than once. I had to watch and reflect and change. And then I studied other people doing communication skills on video and then giving them criticism and saying, what did you miss there? What cue did you miss? And what could you have asked there? So this simulation exercising using video, in my way, is the way to deepen somebody's understanding of how to communicate. And the thing I would add to that is for people to study pauses, study gaps in communication. When you transcribe a visit, if you write it down and you put the seconds down, how much pause was there after that question? Was there a pause in your statement there? Did you allow time for that statement to sink in? You see the most extraordinary things when you look at a transcription from a conversation analysis point of view. So it's to slow things down, video, and to reflect on your own practice. I don't think there's another way of developing communication skills, really. That's my answer.
Okay. I think that's a brilliant.
I agree with you completely. Another method is to sit in with each other. I use that a lot with young doctors and students, and they sit in with me, and I ask them, well, tell me about this consultation. Yeah. To identify also what are the tricks. Sometimes we use tricks. What did change the direction of the consultation? How did you feel when you watched and heard? And so that is really the lifelong learning, also to have the reflections of people who are after you on the career path. They have often very valuable reflections, and I hope also the other way around.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. So reflection and reflexity is also very important. Stay looking in the mirror, and you will find out whether you are a cat or a lion. Glyn, that was the picture you showed us. I think we are at the end of this session. Mehmet, do you have a final word, or can we close this now? No? I would like to thank Glyn, Anna, and also Mehmet for chairing this session, and for all of you with your questions and raising the issues and the discussion. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening or a nice night. And people from America, Canada, have a nice day. And we'll see you tomorrow at the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.